stuff too. So my segment for today involves something that recently happened to many YouTube content creators. Wrangler Star is somebody that many of the people in this audience will know. If you don't know him, you'll know some other people I might mention, like Nut and Fancy. His channel is almost 100% related to guns. Apparently this happened with some people that are very political, especially to the right side of the political spectrum that some people might call extreme, etc. YouTube has demonetized a huge number of their videos, meaning that there's no longer commercials shown when those videos play. And for some of these people, Wrangler Star, for instance, has 500,000 subscribers. This is, I would imagine a very significant revenue segment for him. I can't be sure. I don't put anywhere near the effort into YouTube that many of these people do. YouTube, for me, is this thing that's part of what I do. It's like an appendage. But I have about 30,000 YouTube subscribers, even with taking the approach of just throwing some duck videos up and some aquaponics videos up and some gum videos up and things like that too. And I make about $300. So if the math were logarithmic and worked out, on a straight curve, then I would calculate that somebody like Wrangler Star should be making about $60,000 to $70,000 a year on YouTube as a content creator. And for many people, that's a full-time income. If they can do that, then they can focus, like, whatever they're doing is their content creation. If it's their life, they can have the life they want on that. There's a lot of people that work jobs really hard for less than that amount of money, even when you factor paying your own Social Security and all that stuff and paying your own benefits. There's plenty of people out there killing themselves for 30. And 60 you make on your own is better than 30 somebody pays you. Unless you have a really fantastic benefits program that probably doesn't exist at that level of a job. Okay? So, to lose that, or to lose a portion of that, hurts. And I've been through it before. And before I go into this, because I don't want anybody thinking I'm an apologist for YouTube here, because remember, there is no YouTube. It is not YouTube doing this. YouTube is a thing. It is owned by Google, who one of their tenets is do no evil. They have in their the kind of the thing they put out on their corporate policies, first, do no evil. Generally, when somebody says their policy is to do no evil, they're covering their ass because they do some evil. How much evil here? Maybe less than they've done before. Let's talk about two things that Google did before that really hurt people that are similar to this. The first one is the same platform that they're using for YouTube today, Google AdSense. I've told this before, so I'll be brief. But they used to have, well, they still do, a program where you could put ads from Google on your website. And somebody comes to your website, they see it, they click the ad, and you got a portion of the ad revenue. At the time that they really rolled this out and they were pushing it and trying to get thousands and thousands of us that were content creators to run their ads for them, they never disclosed, but based on research, keyword research, and people that were buying traffic and then looking at how much we were getting paid for the traffic, it was about 50%. So if Google got $1, I got 50 cents. This made it very profitable for me and many other people who went way beyond what I did to make websites that were specifically designed for Google advertising. And one day Google just changed the rules. They just started paying less. And they actually removed payments that they had already counted for us and said things like, well, we believe there was click fraud on your account. What? How the hell could there be click fraud on my websites? Well, most of the traffic that I got was from your search engine. And you send them a thing with your analytics from Google Analytics. Here, look, 98% of my traffic last month was from your search engine. How the hell could it be click fraud if it's from you? And they just don't respond. And that month, I was set to make about $7,000 in AdSense. And by the end of the month, I was down to $1,200. And it dwindled from there to now, it's not even worth, I haven't done anything with it for 10 years, so it's not worth talking about. But had I kept doing what I was doing, maybe I could have made $500 versus $8,000. So it wasn't worth it anymore, so I went off and did other things. This hurt, but I was just getting there with it, so I went off and did other things. And it made me make a decision that I would not be, when it came to my primary revenue sources, a digital sharecropper. If someone could change the rules and affect my income, that could only ever be, I'm not going to not take the money. And when I made, for the next couple of years, I made a couple $100s a month doing absolutely nothing. I certainly didn't send the money back. And if it had stabilized to where they were paying a reasonable payout, I would have continued to throw some stuff up, right? Or I would at least maintain the little satellite sites. I would have made sure that everything stayed relevant and turn up a few leaks to them, because it would have been worth it. Because it would have been, 20 hours a month of work for $500. I'll do that. I don't know if I'd do it now, but at the time I would have done that. But it obviously wasn't going to happen. And it became such that, well, it is what it is. The content's there. If I have an internet property with no other monetization thing, I'll still use it as long as it works, but I'm not going to do anything with the intent of making it my primary revenue model anymore. That was pretty evil, because Google had huge content providers build up massive traffic through their ad network and then just change the price because they could. There was no compelling reason other than we can get away with it. And they knew damn well that these people that had put all these sites up were not going to take the time to go out and take it all back down. That it would last, the residual effect would be 5 to 10 years. And I still make like $20 a month of my AdSense earnings that I get out of like $350, $300, somewhere in that range, will be from these old sites that I haven't touched in 10 years. So if I'm doing it, other people are doing it too, just because, well, what the hell, I'm not gonna worry about it. So I built a site about heavy construction equipment, 10 years ago, on a subdomain of a primary domain with a bunch of other sites on it, and it's still sitting out there, and it makes Google $5 and it makes me a penny. But it doesn't cost me any extra host because it's on my shared hosting or my dedicated box. Why do I give a damn? And that's what they made a calculated decision. And it was when Yahoo came out with a competitive product called Publisher. And when that program, basically, people tried it and went, shit, it doesn't work as good as Google's, then if Yahoo had left it there, Google would have never, ever made the move that they did. But when Yahoo didn't get a huge punch with it and took it away, and it was the only other choice, Google snapped to it. And it was like Yahoo took the platform away, and a month later, boom, the AdSense death came. Okay? Now, the other time Google did something like this, there was a website, I'm sure it still exists, maybe it's called something else, but it was called Pay Per Post. And what it was is, if you were a small-time blogger, people who wanted you to blog about their stuff could make offers, and you could accept the offer. And the primary thing people were looking for is, did you have Google PageRank, or PR, which we won't get into, but it was a metric that Google put out, said it didn't mean anything, and lied. It absolutely did mean something. They knew it meant something. And if you had links on other websites with good PR, you got better listings than Google. So all of these bloggers were many of them were a little bit delusional. They thought people actually cared about their feisty chick blog or whatever, their snarky gal blog or whatever. No, what they cared about was snarky gal had like a Google PR of a 5, which is pretty damn good. So if she blogged about you and linked to your site with a certain link a certain way, that would help you with Google. Now, there was actually nothing evil or wrong about this service. Every single post had a disclaimer in it, a little button that said this was, provided for a paid, so it was fully disclosed. And Google's search algorithm actually liked it. It actually did make you. It wasn't like magic, but you could get exposure for your site, and then it wasn't going to do it all by itself. It wasn't like you could cheat the system with it, but it would get your site indexed. It would, get Google spiders paying attention to it. And if you were doing other good things the right way and you were doing good content, you could do okay in the search rankings. So thousands upon thousands of companies started running campaigns with Pay Per Post. Now, Google couldn't fix their algorithm to compensate for it. So they paid interns to sit and catch people who were doing it and manually adjusted their PR to 0. They took single moms that were working at home, that were making $1,300, $1,500 a month, that were able to stay at work at home, and they destroyed the value of their internet property manually because they didn't like what was going on. That was pretty evil. Okay, so the reason I said that before we go into what they've just recently done is, I'm going to explain their point of view in this, and I don't want you to think I'm saying Google's wonderful and we should wrap them up in a big hug. but I actually understand why they're doing what they're doing. When I heard this, I went, wait a minute. I don't believe that, Eric Schmidt or something one day just said, hey, you know what? We got a lot of people putting up videos about Jesus and what Jesus thinks about abortion, and we have a lot of people putting up videos about guns, and I don't like that, and we should take away their ability to make money even though they have 500,000 or 1 million subscribers. I don't think Google would want to do that, because the other two decisions, while they were evil, they were absolutely motivated by money. Absolutely motivated by money. And it was, we can just do this and we'll have more money. Now, the first one was because you cut the payout to the partner, you get to keep more money. That's pretty cut and dry. You might wonder how the paid blogger one worked. Well, if you had really good search results, you were less likely to go buy advertising from Google. So if there became a way that you could kind of commoditize SEO or search engine optimization, it would hurt their direct ad revenue. They also just didn't like it. They didn't like somebody manipulate. They've always considered anybody that manipulates their algorithm that they built, instead of fixing the flaws, we must attack them. Right? So it was a spiteful thing too. In this case, something very, very different is going on, and it is still about money. Many advertisers, specifically a lot of them out of the UK, which is far more socialist, social justice warrior type, influenced organizations, and several domestic ones as well, notice that, they might have their product being advertised on this crazy guy from the desert Southwest talking about guns all the time, and their company was hugely anti-gun. And a bunch of them got together, and I have an article that I've linked to in the show notes so you can learn more about this. But the total cost in lost advertising on this boycott by this collective group of advertisers was $750 million for the year. Okay? $750 million. Google anticipates that they will do on the monetization advertising for YouTube about $10 billion. So almost, not quite, but almost 10% hit to their revenue like that. Because what the advertiser was saying is, I don't want my ads on their videos. Now, I want you to hold your anger if you like Wrangler Star or Nut Fancy or any of these people. I want you to hold your fire at being angry for a second. I want you to think logically. It's your business. You're going to lose 10% of your revenue, and maybe it's going to cascade and be more if you don't do something. Are you going to do, not necessarily what Google did, but are you going to do something? And most people would say, well, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something. And remember, you're not talking about Jack Spirko's TSP where I can just tell somebody to piss off, and if I lose 10% of my revenue from it, I don't give a damn. I'm going to stand on principle. You're talking about a publicly traded company who is subject to a lawsuit by its shareholders if it doesn't maintain good fiscal responsible behavior. And doing nothing would actually open them to a class action lawsuit that they would probably lose. So not only would they lose money, their own shareholders would turn around and sue them for, even if you didn't want to as a shareholder, somebody would do it in your behalf with class action. Okay? So you got to understand where Google's at in this. So now the becomes, what is the something to do? Let's go a little further with this. I've been amused at times and pissed at times about this. I'll watch one of my own videos and an advertisement will come up for Monsanto. And I'd like to actually, there's a way to do it, but I can't figure out how to do it with the YouTube. I would actually like to say, I don't want Monsanto's advertisement on my content. And I guarantee you, if Monsanto knew that on my video about how GMOs suck, their advertisement was playing, and that all of my followers think that Monsanto is the devil, it wouldn't be like the anti-gun company going, I don't want to appear like I'm supporting any gun. The Monsanto advertising person would say, this is poorly spent money. This advertising is not going to yield a positive result for us. We don't want to advertise there because this is a bad match. Effectively, many of these companies that are going to Google and saying, we're not going to advertise if you're going to put us on Wrangler Star's video, are saying, we don't want to sponsor his content. Well, Google, for all the shit they've done, and I might need to sign up as an advertiser to advertise on YouTube because I never have. So I don't know how much control you have as an advertiser, But my instinct is not a lot, especially if you're buying like all available. Like you might have targeted stuff for a certain amount of money, and then a big amount of slush fund every month. Because a lot of these companies, what they say is, well, we're going to put $250,000 in YouTube advertising. Just that's what we're going to do. So then they because this is how a lot of the pay-per-click stuff works. So we're going to tightly control this, and that's going to give us an estimated spend with very targeted things of $150,000. Well, shit, we still have $100,000. So they'll just, the cheapest stuff you can give us, just give us everything. And then all of a sudden, you're on videos that your company specifically does not want to represent. So if you don't have if Google can't go to them and say, look, you can just not advertise, here's your control panel, switch this all off, and don't put your content there, and they have to stop the bleeding of the $750 million just walking away. What they did is they went through the ones that were causing the biggest outcry from their sponsors and demonetized the videos altogether. I think. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure they just turned off the monetization. From Cody's video, from Wrangler Star's video, it sounds like that's what they did. What may have happened is it's still monetized. There's just no ads on it anymore. Because that was where their advertising revenue was coming from. Now, I want you to think about this, again, if you suspend your anger for a second. If you are a pro-gun or pro-religion or pro-conservative or pro-libertarian channel, and that's what your core thing is, how do you actually feel about being represented as being sponsored by someone that's anti-you? Which is what I said earlier. I kind of would like to just say Monsanto cannot advertise on TSP's YouTube channel. If it cost me $10 because that was how much revenue I got from them, fine. Now, other people might say, you know what? I'll take their freaking money because they're stupid for advertising on my channel. Part of me feels that way too. But you can understand that the advertiser would want greater control over which channels they can and cannot advertise on. Now, here's the other side of this. Google likes money. They're very good at making money. They don't want a person like Cody with 500,000 subscribers to not have a way to monetize his videos because then they don't have a way to monetize his videos. So I think what Google will do is give the advertisers greater control over where their content is displayed and simply say, if you don't want a channel that uses any of these keywords, click this box or stick the keywords, and they have to build, the technology they should have built, they will now have to build to fix this problem. I think they probably will. Here's the other side of that, though. That may actually affect negatively the revenue of all YouTube content creators over time, because as the advertisers get better at targeting it, they're going to eliminate a lot of their wasted spend. Because if they can, because when I said, this company's like a big company, so we're just going to $250,000 a month, and some of them do, and they're spending $100,000 on everything they can get just because of the total quantity. It's so cheap. If they could spend 100% of that $250,000 highly targeted, they would. So remember how I started this and I said Google basically screwed over content creators by changing the payout? They did, but that's not the only reason being an AdSense content developer reduced in value over time. The other reason was the companies buying the advertising started using the tools that Google already had in place for them and getting more and more targeted and saying things like, if I'm on the content network, I want to bid lower. So not only did Google cut the payout, the advertisers got more savvy, got more tight on their advertising, and reduced how much was being spent in that world at the same time. Because they knew search traffic converted at a higher rate than content network traffic. What the case has been with YouTube is it's been so cheap in the world of corporate advertising. The fact that you could reach 50 million people for, I don't know, probably $10,000 to a company that's used to paying, $1 million for a 60-second commercial in the Super Bowl. Well, screw it. We don't care. Just do it. And if they're getting any response at all, they're happy. But sooner or later, somebody in these socially conscious companies realizes, hey, there's a guy with a flak jacket and one of them scary assault rifles, and our ad's on his thing, and we don't like that. Now, I guarantee you if it was one company spending $200,000 a year with Google, Google would have said, okay, so. But when you're looking at $750 million going away from a publicly traded entity that's subject to lawsuit by its shareholders, it had to do something. What is the lesson here if your dream is to be a YouTube content provider? Okay, the lesson is not don't make content that will piss off these advertisers. Because I think if that's what you really want to do, that you should do it. The lesson would be don't make all of your videos that way. Because it seems to be, in many cases, video by video. Where someone, you say, well, nothing fancy. It's like almost all his videos. Well, almost all his videos are about guns. Where Cody at Wrangler Star has noticed that, like, a lot of them, yes, and a lot of them, no. Why? Because a lot of his videos wouldn't offend anybody. You know, even these weirdos. Like, I'm not saying it's okay for these weirdos. Actually, I am saying it's okay for these companies to be offended. As a company with a company directive and goal, if I don't want to spend my advertising dollars with you because I don't like what you do, I think that's the free market. The problem is that Google threw an off switch instead of putting a filter. And hopefully they'll put in a filter. My view is, if you're making all of your money as a YouTube content provider, and you're doing it all through the AdSense platform, you're doing 100% digital sharecropping. You're farming on somebody else's farm. Not only are you farming on somebody else's farm, you're selling all of your product through their marketing system. So it's one thing to be a sharecropper and say, I'm going to lease this land, I'm going to grow 80 pigs on it, I'm going to go put my electric fence up around it, my portable fencing as well. I'm going to paddock shift these pigs for 7 months, and then I'm going to take them and I'm going to sell them into the market, and I'm going to get a premium for them. And if I get thrown off this farm, I'll just go lease another one, take all my electric fencing shit, all my stock tanks, everything that's portable, and 2 or 3 trailer moves, and I'm down the road and I got another place. Because my revenue was never from the leased land. It was just where I did my operations. That's how I think you need to look at YouTube and Facebook and any place else where they give you a way to monetize your. If you can get money for monetizing your content, turn it on, but don't get addicted to it. That's gravy. That's gravy. The main course is how do you monetize. So here's how I feel about Cody. Cody, and I linked. He does it's like a 20-minute video, but only the second half is, and it like just all of a sudden goes into this problem out of nowhere. Like it just changes and it just starts talking about it, and we don't know what this means and whatever. I've linked to it from the show notes, and I've linked to it so it jumps straight to that part, so you can see him explain it and understand it better than maybe I've explained it, because I'm explaining the other side, not what happened and what it means to him, because it means a lot more to him than it means to me. My revenue went up. I'm not saying that means it's not a problem. I'm saying it means it's not a problem for me. So since it didn't hit me, I don't have the same emotion, which actually probably makes me more logical in my assessment. Right? If it hit me harder, I might be a little more pissed. But I've seen Google do way worse, so I'm like, yeah, of course Google did this. Because it was financially, and actually it was like more justifiable than some of the other shit they did. But what I pointed out in a comment to Cody, and I don't know how he'll take it, is he was saying things like, we don't want to put any burden on our viewers. What? You got 500,000 people watching what you do. You don't want to put a burden on them? See, I think if you're providing good content, some portion of the eyeballs looking at you that value your content won't have a problem providing you some sort of compensation for it. The same person you don't want to apply a burden to might have a $200 a month cable bill. They don't mind paying that because they want the Red Zone package. Right? So, we're in the same business as cable TV people or the radio people. Right? So with a podcast, I'm in the same business that, people like Rush Limbaugh, Michael Savage, and Glenn Beck are in. I just have a different way that I do my delivery. When you're on YouTube, you're in the same business that Netflix is in, maybe is a better way to think of it. Or Amazon Prime download videos are, or even cable TV is. You have the more eyeballs, the more value your content has. Now, there's a thing called Patreon. I don't know a lot about it. I don't know if you could go as low as $1, but I'm going to go for this explanation. Cody, Wrangler Star, has 500,000 plus subscribers. 10% of that is 50,000. If he could get 10% of his subscribers to say, you're worth $1 a month. You're worth $1 a month. He'd make $50,000 a month. That's $600,000 a year. Now, here's what else I'm going to say about that. And this is not an attack on anybody, because it would apply to any channel with the same number he has. If you can't get 10% of the people paying attention to you to spend $12 a year with you, then you're not bringing that much value to the advertiser that's been paying to advertise on your content, because your content doesn't drive purchasing decisions at a high enough level to be worth what the advertiser's paying for it. In other words, the reason you advertise is it's not like sponsoring a little league team. Like, okay, they're the local little league team. They're the Bears, and you're survival podcast, and you write a check for $1,000 to sponsor them for the season, and they can take their field trip or go take their away game or whatever, and maybe they put your little emblem on their uniform or whatever. But you're not going to get your money back. It could happen, but you're not doing it for that reason. You're doing it to be nice. You're doing it to be a Patreon, right? Right? You're trying to help them. In the world of advertising on the internet, you're not doing a sponsorship to be nice. You're doing a sponsorship because if I spend $1,000 of advertising, if it makes me $2,000 of revenue, I want to know how I can spend $2,000 and get $4,000. And if it keeps continuing that way, I'll spend every dime I can on that source until it runs out. But if I spend $1,000 on advertising and it brings me $500 worth of value, I'm not spending another dollar on it. So the content providers that are making $50,000, $60,000 a year in advertising should be able to make similar to that, or at least half of that value a month, if they were effectively monetizing their content directly to their audience. And if you want to be in the content production business, that's what I think you should do. Now, here's the interesting thing. That was the same advice that I gave you 8 years ago in regard to the same question before this problem existed. Why? One, past behavior of the big Google, so you know they'll do it again. But the other reason is it's just more effective. It's just more effective. The primary thing I sell on the Survival Podcast is memberships. Why? Because if my content is valuable enough that you'll buy a filter from the Berkey guy, or you'll buy coins from JM Bullion, why wouldn't I capitalize on myself directly by putting together a product of value and offering it to you myself? That's smart business, and that's what if you have 30, 40, 50,000 people paying attention to you in any social media outlet, and you're not monetizing it, you don't understand the situation. And to talk like that would be victimizing or putting a burden on them. You know, if you're putting out, like this guy puts out like freaking 5 videos a week or something like that, high production value, high value videos. You don't exist solely to serve. You exist to serve an audience, but you can only do that if you're able to make enough money to make it worth the time and effort. It's a lot of time and effort to produce a podcast, a video program, anything like it. Anybody that's ever done it gets a new appreciation for it. So wherever you're doing it, people that are models on Instagram, and they have a million followers or some stupid shit like that, and they make no money. They get some free tickets to a baseball game or something like that. Are you kidding me? If there's that many people paying attention to you, and you can't figure out how to monetize it, YouTube, Google, etc. are not your problem. You are your own problem, and you need to solve that problem and figure out how to monetize what you're doing without taking advantage of your members or your listeners or your viewers or what have you. Not asking for charity. But I'll tell you what, a guy that's putting out, let's say it's 10 a month, high quality, high production value videos that 500,000 people subscribe to because they want to see them when they come out, saying, hey, if you think there's some value to this, how about becoming a Patreon or doing it, to hell, write Patreon on out of it. Set up a members program. Set up a members program. Do one video a month that's only for members. An exclusive video that's not on YouTube. And put that in a members area. and say, if you want to support the work we do here at the channel at the end of your show, hey, become a member. It's $12 a year. And with 500,000 viewers, 10%, it's $50,000 a month. Your problem is not, if you are a content provider with that level of production, your content, your problem is not the monetization platform of the place you're sharecropping at. It's the failure to monetize your own. And that's not in defense of Google. I hope that's clear after how hard I beat them like a redheaded stepchild today. That's concrete business.